The first guest was a winner in the age 13 plus category, and his name is James Johnson, and his book is called Dark Country. And he won for having the best book based on what the judges scores, and we have a panel of judges that scores all the books that are presented. And he won this year, and I believe he submitted a book the previous year. I don't think it was the same book, but this year he was a winner. So congratulations on being a winner, and your award was already shipped to you. So congratulations on that. Do you have your award handy? Oh, we need you to unmute.
No, I don't have my award handy. I got it downstairs.
Okay, do you have your book handy?
I do.
Okay, great. So, so the book that you won for is called Dark Country. You want to show the cover of the book?
There you go.
Okay. And you write under J. Darnell Johnson.
Yeah, that's my pen name.
Okay, so is the J for James on your pen name or no?
Yeah, the J is for James, and Darnell is my middle name.
Oh,
And
okay.
so when I first got into the business, people were telling me, no one's going to find you with James Johnson because that's such a common name.
That is
And
true.
so I said, let me break it down a little bit so it'd be more unique and people
That was
wouldn't have that much difficulty finding me.
that was good advice. I went to either elementary or middle school with the James Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I hope he was as
Years
cool as
ago.
me.
He was nice. I remember him being nice. So anyway,
Good, good.
so tell us about Dark Country and what is it about? Give us a synopsis of what the book is about and what motivated you to write that book for a young adult audience.
Yeah, so Gwen, I just wanted to say thank you for having me on. I appreciate you having a forum so Black authors can speak and talk about what they're doing in terms of literary works. Let me just give you a little backdrop, and I'm gonna read something and let me know if you heard this before.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. There's a fifth dimension beyond that which is known to man. It's a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It's the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This dimension of imagination is an area which we call
The Outer Limits or the
no,
Twilight Zone. The
you got
Twilight
it close.
Zone.
The
I knew it
Twilight
was one or
Zone.
the other.
You got it. You got it.
Okay.
It's, so I came up, during the 60s and 70s, and so I was really into the Twilight Zone. But then
Okay.
in Dark Country, in my afterword, this is what I wrote. Think about being betwixt and between, neither here nor there, straddling the light and the dark, neither free nor enslaved. It's time to step out of the shadows and into the warmth of the sun's rays, but you seem to never quite reach them. Freedom is so close, yet so far and elusive. Sounds like you just entered the twilight zone, right?
Okay.
Right?
So
But more,
so
go
is
ahead.
this person like traveling through time? Is this a time travel book?
No, no, it's not.
Okay.
But I'll finish and I'm gonna give you a little bit more information here.
Okay.
And so it's not the Twilight Zone, but it's more fittingly, it's like you stepped into dark country. And another way to think about it is think about the time right after slavery ended and your former slave masters were not happy about it. They had to share power with Negroes who were just been slaves, and now all of a sudden they got to let them be free. And so, the white slave master may have said, okay, go fend for yourself. Go buy your own clothing, your food, and your shelter. Let's see how you're going to do without me. And Negroes said, hey, I've always been dependent on other people. What am I going to do? I don't have any money. I don't have any education. I don't have any access to resources. what in the world am I going to do? And unfortunately, uh, during that time, white folks were pushing back so hard against what we were trying to do. And so Reconstruction, which the book is that's the background of the book. That's the era that we were in.
Okay.
That was when the Ku Klux Klan became into power. And I used to think that it was during slavery, but it was after slavery when the Ku Klux Klan and other white supremacy organizations threatened the former slaves from buying land and getting educated and worshiping and gaining political power and able to vote. And so they used terror and intimidation, lynchings, a lot of lying going on, a lot of trickery and chicanery going on. But it was also a time during Reconstruction where there was a lot of gains that Black people had in a short amount of time. Reconstruction was from 1865 to 1877. And so during that time, there were 5 Black senators. But after 100 years later, they only had a total of 9. So in the first 12 years, there were 5 Black senators. So there was like, major gains that happened. But then Jim Crow came and boom, we were out of the running for being in office. But it was also time when the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment happened during Reconstruction. And that was a time with, I remember being young and somebody said, man, don't you know that you're in the Constitution? I said, what? We're not Black people? Okay. Well, the 13th Amendment was for ending slavery, and the 14th Amendment was for birthright citizenship. So, before you weren't citizens, now you're citizens, and now your offspring would be citizens. And the 15th Amendment gave us the right to vote. And so that was so wonderful. We had all these rights and being considered a first-class citizen, but the white backlash was so hard and so tough that it was like we were in a living hell. And so I wrote the book, Dark Country. And why did I call it Dark Country? Because number one, it's a metaphor for America's dark and sinful past. Number two, Dark Country refers to Black country, which throughout the South, there was a lot of Black people. And in some Southern states, there was some majority Black states.
Yes.
Relative to white people.
Yes.
And thirdly, it referred to the U.S. government Secret Service Operation Dark Country, which was designed to ensure that the rights of the Negroes were being enforced so they can enjoy the same freedoms and guarantees that white people had. And so what I was thinking about doing is, you heard of the Wild Wild West series. That was during the time of Reconstruction, but they were fighting each other. And so I was thinking, well, what if I created a book that was about Reconstruction, where we knew who the enemy was? The enemy was white people and white supremacy and the systemic racism that was going on to prevent us from achieving anything. And so I said, well, I'm going to have some characters to be able to do that, but I need a leader first. And the leader was none other than the iconic Frederick Douglass. And Frederick Douglass, the original first civil rights leader was Frederick Douglass. And Frederick Douglass was leading the Secret Service, but it needed some oomph, and he already created Operation Dark Country, but he needed some oomph. And so he ran into Blaze Vaughn and Shaman Stroud. And these two cats were super, okay? They were, let's just start with Blaze Vaughn. Blaze was a master fighter with his hands, his feet. He could talk a good game. He could be quick. He could be quick-witted. He was handsome. He was debonair. And he was always thinking ahead. He used to be in the Union Army, but he was AWOL from the Army, and he was thinking that if he ever got caught, he would go back to jail for treason. And back in those days, you could be killed for treason.
Yes.
And then his other partner, Shaman Stroud, he's from the Dogon tribe, which isn't a real tribe, but the Dogong tribe of West Africa. And they had, and he was a shaman. His family were a family of shamans, but they also were a family that had the ability to polymorph, meaning that they could change shape. They could become different people. They could become different reptiles or different birds or different other animals. And so he has ability to change that kind of thing. He can also move objects with his mind, and he can hypnotize, and he knew all about the stars and all about nature, and he could see the future. But he also was very serious. Blaise Vaughn, the leader of that team, he was more of a ladies' man, but he was always there on time and ready to fight and to ensure that African Americans had their rights enforced. And so Frederick Douglass was doing this Operation Dark Country. He was doing it underground, secretly. He didn't want anybody to know that he was running Dark Country. But they suspected he might have been, but he kept it, underground. And so when they would go out, they called themselves the Liberator Team. And so they would go on their train called Destiny, and they would go all around the South. And then they meet up with Frederick Douglass, and he give them their marching orders. He give them their assignment and say, this is where I want you to target. This is what's going on where white people are infringing on the rights of Black people. And this is the person who's leading that particular organization or that charge against Black people's progress and all of that. And so they go there, and it has once they get to that town, they get on their flying horses, and they're able to go around and find the different villains, if you will, and take care of business there. And one of the things that Blaise would always do whenever they went to a different town, which was indicative of other African Americans who were just freed, they were looking for their families. And so Blaise would go from town to town and from courthouse to courthouse to find if anybody knew where his family was. And he'd look up records and ask people, my word of mouth, have you seen my parents? And so he just, that was part of the whole story, that he was always looking for his family no matter what. And also you'll see in Dark Country that there's a lot of Black people who are starting, who are building homes, who are building businesses, who are starting churches, who are building educational institutions, who are buying land, who are developing, owning banks, and it was in a short amount of time during Reconstruction, right after slavery, all of this growth was happening. But the larger we got, the more angry white people got. I mean, that's a true story. And so if the liberators weren't there in real life, which they weren't, what in the world would happen to Black people? And so the key is that Black people are going to be protected by the Liberator Team, Shaman Stroud and Blaise Vaughn, to make sure that the rights are being protected and advancement would happen. And who knows in real life if that would have happened, where Black people would have been, because we would have had protectors of our rights and freedoms. And so that's pretty much the background, the backdrop, and what it's all about. And I just was watching the Wild Wild West and just remembered how I really loved that show. But hey, this is Black people during that time with advanced knowledge, with advanced gadgets, to be able to get through some of the trying times that they were going against. And they were walking into hell every time they went out.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a very interesting. So is it like a fantasy almost?
Yeah, it's part fantasy, it's part Western, it's part
Okay.
steampunk, it's part historical fiction.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of people, well, I won't say a lot of people, some people don't know Jim Crow was after Reconstruction, but it was not instituted immediately. It was instituted when we started to make advances. And it
Mm-hmm.
was it was the code to put us back in our place, so to speak. And it was a long time before, well, really, the civil rights movement when uh, the pushback began against it. But we had rights and they were stripped. That's basically what happened. And then
and we
that's when
didn't.
the color, the colored water fountains and the colored restrooms and riding in the back of the bus or the back of the train or whatever. Um, just all the and then the just little, and I don't know if I want to call it little things, but things like we couldn't try on clothes in stores for years, for
No,
decades. Black
no.
people, we had to buy it without trying it on because we
Hmm.
weren't allowed, except our own stores. Now, the black owned stores, we could, but if we ventured out to purchase at a white owned store, we couldn't try the clothes on.
No. And and you are, you live in Texas, and
Yes.
my family's from Texas.
Okay.
And so we would go to Texas during the summer in the 60s and 70s as a family,
Mhm.
go to a family reunion. And it
What
was
part?
like, well, Marshall, Texas and Crockett, Texas.
Okay. Not that far. I'm in Houston.
And you're in
Marshall's not
Houston,
that far. It's
and
up
Marshall's not
59.
that far,
No,
up
it's not.
59.
Right, up
Yeah.
59. Hmm.
Yep. And so what we would do, we would go there, and my father and mother were both from Texas. And
Okay.
so we would go there and they would say, "Don't look a white man in the eye." And this was in the 60s and 70s, not 1860s and 70s. This
Right,
was
right.
1960s and 70s. Don't look him
Mhm.
in the eye, and keep your head down. Walk on the other side of the street. Make sure you don't make any fuss. Just say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, every time you speak to them. And we weren't used to saying yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am in the North, where I'm from, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And
Okay.
so we weren't used to talking like that. And so it was a big difference. But this wasn't during Reconstruction.
Right,
This was
right.
over 100 years later that this was happening.
Correct. I'm not from Texas, so
Okay.
I'm actually from the East Coast.
Okay.
But so I wasn't I never well in the all of the color signs and all that, that was before me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I did integrate a school
Oh, you
when I
did?
in third
Ruby
grade.
Bridges? Ruby Bridges style?
And no, actually, it was in Henderson, North Carolina,
Okay.
and it was a school before the government forced integration. They did an experiment. They had 7 black families integrate a
Mm-hmm.
school, and they had my father was a pastor, so they had one. It was a doctor, a lawyer's family, a teacher,
Yeah.
yeah, and so we integrated this. It was E.M. Rollins School, but
You're in the
my
history
it,
books.
well, it wasn't violent or anything because it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like it was like experiment. So my actual experience as an 8-year-old was very positive because I was fortunate that I had a teacher that
Mm-hmm.
was very open-minded and fair. Not everybody had that though, but I did. And I will say, I was the only black child in the class, but I was the smartest kid in the class. And
Oh,
and the students and the teacher acknowledged me as the smartest kid in the class.
is that right?
Hmm. You know,
Oh,
that was a crucible that gave me a lot of confidence later as I went through life.
yeah, that would really lift my spirits if that was happening.
It
To
was
be being the only
unusual,
black.
probably. I'm thinking about writing a children's book about it. It was really like surreal in terms of what you hear about from that time.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. And
And
and you're living evidence of that.
yeah, my dad was a pastor and he had a like a I think a Buick. He had a late model Buick, but he
Okay.
bought an old car,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember it very well because we were embarrassed to ride in it because the back floorboard in the back, you could see the street. It was
Oh,
like, but he didn't want the people at the school to know he had a new
uh,
Buick. It was, you know, he
oh, I
didn't
know.
want it to be
I
an
get it.
issue. So that's why I really I've already started making some notes, even doing some research about that time. And because it's a different story that kids might benefit from.
Oh, yes. And I hope that you put that out there because that's kind of what I do. It's like when I put my works out there, it educates, but it also entertains. And not just for it's my books are not just for Black people, it's for all people because all people need to understand and read about our history and culture and
Yes,
celebrate our history and culture so that it's not anything foreign, it's not anything. Because some Black people, it's, you talk about Black history and it's like, I don't want to hear it. But at the
well,
same time, that
stupid. I mean, you need to know where you came from. Otherwise, you really don't know where you're going. You don't have, and we need to hear more about the strength that our ancestors had to
that's right.
have to deal with what they had to deal with for us to be here.
hmm
You
We
know,
couldn't even be where we are today if it
no,
wasn't for our ancestors who got us the opportunity, and some of them died.
right. But they really put their hopes and dreams in us. And so it's really our obligation to do our best. It's just and my parents, my dad, he actually ended up getting a PhD, but he went to school. He had three jobs. He was like a preacher in a rural area. Then he had two other jobs while he was raising a family. It
Oh,
was
wow.
the things that they did just to so we could get ahead. It's just incredible. you know,
No, really, we're
yeah,
resilient people.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
and we couldn't have
very.
got this far without being resilient.
No, and without them, they had tremendous faith.
hmm
They
You had to
they
have faith in order to
yes,
get through whatever you had to get through. And
yes,
sometimes you had to laugh at yourself just
yes,
because, I mean, it's serious business. People are dying all around you. But I tell you what, we had to laugh and have a good time in order to get through those moments. And sometimes we just go off into singing and
yeah,
just start
that's true.
singing. They say, you guys are happy. No, we got faith. That's what it is.
Yes, but we also have very cohesive communities too, and we've lost that, but we had very tight knit communities.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I'm glad that you were able to give a point of view in dark country that lets people know that there were people dreaming about something
Yes.
beyond what their circumstance was.
Yes. And we are the result of that.
Yes, yes, we
Do
would
I have
not.
time to do I have time to talk about one other book?
Yes, you do. You have 6 minutes left.
All right. So I'm just I just wanted to make sure because I know that you mentioned that I had entered a book into the contest before and I was a finalist. It's called
Yes,
Jamal and Me Freedom Summer.
yes, yes.
And
Do you have a
uh,
copy of that one?
yeah,
And
let me pull that up.
okay, okay, yes, I remember that. I remember that book.
Remember that?
Yes,
Yeah, so that's Jamal and Me Freedom Summer. And one reviewer put it this way: do you know that a simple jar of jelly beans stood in the way between Americans and their fundamental right to vote? The story is how candy became a tool of oppression and how one young boy's special talent connects to this dark chapter in history. It's mind blowing. And I said that is perfect summation of what Jamal and Me Freedom Summer was about. Jamal and Me uh, Freedom Summer was a real event, 1964 Mississippi. And Jamal is a jelly bean counting whiz kid. And he is so excited. He comes home, he tells his mom and his grandmother that he won another jelly bean counting contest. And his grandma Lynn said, "Boy, I wish you were around when in Mississippi, where I grew up, where you had to count the number of jelly beans in a jar in order to vote." And, him and his brother Jordan couldn't believe it. And they were like, "Oh my God, I wish I could be around grandma. I would just go down there and I would show her, count those jelly beans for her so she could vote." Well, his dream came true. And what ended up happening was he met a beautiful black butterfly lady named Queen Azina. And she came into his room and said, "I will take you to 1964 Mississippi, down in the Delta, down to Indianola, Mississippi, where Fannie Lou Hamer lives. And that's where your great grandmother, my dear, lives. I can take you back in time." So this is a time travel book.
Okay. Okay.
Take you back in time. And so he sends him, Jamal, his brother Jordan, and their dog Pharaoh back in time to Mississippi to find their great grandmother, so that he can find his great grandmother, so he can go with her to the courthouse and get her registered to vote. But he is such a whiz kid at those jelly beans. He's telling his great grandmother, "I'm not going to fail you, my dear. I'm not going to fail you. I'm going to count those jelly beans and you're going to be able to vote." And so the rest is history. You have to read the book to find out. And you can get my books because I write children's books and I write adult science fiction and fantasy.
Okay.
And I write everything in between. And so young adult, middle age, early readers, all of those things. I have 10 books out.
So do you write under J. Darnell Johnson?
I write under J. Darnell Johnson.
For all of those.
And you can find my books at my website at jdarnelljohnson.com.
Okay. All right.
That's where you can find me and my books. And I'm just going to keep writing until I can't write no more.
Well, good for you. And for those who may not know about the whole jelly bean, counting the jelly beans, as a way of keeping Black people out of being able to vote, they had these ridiculous tests and measurements that they knew you couldn't pass.
Right.
But it was their way of really making fun of you. And counting the jelly beans in a jar was one of them. They had the poll tax and then the literacy clause where they would make you read some part of the Constitution and interpret it when a lot of them couldn't read and interpret it.
No.
But these were barriers to keep people from voting. And
voter suppression.
And it's in the South primarily. I don't think they did it in the North. But my parents couldn't vote until they were in their 30s and they were in the South. They were in North Carolina, but they couldn't vote until they were in their 30s when, the civil rights legislation was passed. And so that's why, one of the reasons why it's very important for us all to exercise our right to vote. And we should not take it for granted.
People fought, bled, and died to make sure that we had that. And so as the new midterms come up in 2028,
2026.
2026 and 28 is the presidential election. Especially young people. Please vote and stop voter suppression now.
Okay, and with that, we are at the end of your time, but we appreciate your being a guest on the show. Congratulations again on being a winner this year. And we hope to see many more works from you in this genre that you call like fantasy/historical fiction.
Yes, indeed. I look forward to being back on the show and working with Black Authors Matter TV.
Okay, have a great evening and have a wonderful holiday season.
You too. Thank you.